Okay, picture this. February 1st, 2025. India quietly launches this massive 2,250 crore rupee export mission. But here's the thing. No headlines, no big fanfare. It felt like just another budget day, or, so we all thought. Then, just 2 months later, bam, the US slaps a 26% tariff on Indian goods. And by August, it had rocketed up to a staggering 50%.
I mean, you can imagine every single analyst was predicting an absolute disaster, a total trade catastrophe. But instead of crashing and burning, India's exports actually grew. So how on earth did that happen? How did a country hit with one of the harshest US trade crackdowns we've ever seen somehow manage to outsmart the storm? Well, I'll tell you this much, it wasn't luck. It was pure strategy, executed like a grandmaster's chess move, 5 steps ahead of the game.
We are Voice on Pages, and this is what we do. We connect the dots between big economic ideas and what's actually happening on the ground. Today, we are diving deep into the strategy that not only navigated those insane 50% tariffs, but also reveals a ton about the new rules of global trade.
All right, so let's get right into it. The key to understanding how India weathered this storm is realizing that they saw the clouds gathering way before the rain started to fall. This wasn't some sudden out-of-the-blue crisis. No, this was an anticipated threat, and they were watching it closely. Just take a look at this timeline. You've got the export mission launching way back in February. The first tariff is not even announced until April. So by the time that full, brutal 50% tariff slams down in late August, India's counter-strategy had already been in motion for more than 6 months. See the difference? By the time the shockwave actually hit, they weren't just scrambling to react, they were already deep into executing their plan.
And that brings us right to the heart of their approach. Look, this wasn't some single magic bullet. Not at all. It was a really robust, 3-pillar defense that was specifically designed to build resilience long before the crisis even started.
So the plan was super methodical. Pillar 1, go all in on diversifying markets, right? To reduce that dangerous dependence on any one single partner. Pillar 2, launch this huge government mission to protect the little guys, the small and medium exporters. And Pillar 3, double down on diplomacy, working around the clock to open up brand new trade corridors.
I mean, the sheer scale of this first pillar is what's truly mind-blowing. India didn't just tweak things, they dramatically expanded their focus from 20 to 50 countries. That's adding 30 new partners to the mix. And here's the key insight. The goal wasn't to replace the US market. That would be almost impossible. The goal was to outgrow their dependence on it. That is such a crucial distinction.
Okay, so Pillar 2. This was the financial shield, that 2,250 crore rupee export promotion mission. It basically did 2 big things. First, Niryat Protsan, which provided that absolutely critical trade financing for small businesses. And second, Niryat Disha, which was all about helping those exact same businesses actually break into all these new global markets we just talked about. And this quote, I think, just perfectly captures the whole spirit of the third pillar. Instead of getting dragged into some messy tit-for-tat tariff war, India just accelerated trade negotiations on all these different fronts. They were building new economic bridges while making sure to keep the old diplomatic channels with the US wide open. So, look, the strategy sounds really impressive on paper, right? But the real question is, did it actually work when the pressure was really on? Let's bring in a little dose of reality here and see what the numbers really have to say. So, did India just perfectly dodge the bullet? Well, not exactly. The data, it reveals a much more complex picture, and frankly, a much more interesting picture than some simple myth about a perfect escape.
All right, so what do the numbers tell us? This right here is where the story gets fascinating. In September 2025, with those tariffs in full effect, exports to the US did fall, and they fell sharply by 11.9%. So yeah, the tariffs did real damage. But look at the other bar. Exports to the rest of the world surged by 10.9%. You see? This wasn't an escape. It was a massive rebalancing act happening in real time.
And for some sectors, man, the hit was severe. Take Indian marine products, for example. Exports to the US just plummeted by almost 33%. That's real economic pain for real people. And it just goes to show, this idea of a perfect, painless shield, it's a total myth. The strategy was never about avoiding the punch. It was all about being strong enough to take it and stay on your feet.
And hey, what about that huge rescue plan, the export mission? The popular theory was that it was this fully operational machine right from day one, but the reality was a bit different. By October 2025, a lot of it was still in its early stages, with key parts still waiting for cabinet approval. And that confirms something really important. It was never meant to be some quick emergency fix. It was designed from the start as a long-term framework for resilience.
Okay, so if it wasn't a perfect escape, then what was it? Well, this is where we get to the real story. It's not a story about a flawless plan. It's a story about a gritty, adaptive, and in the end, a really effective resilience strategy.
And that whole diversification strategy, it wasn't just a nice idea on a PowerPoint slide, it really paid off. At the absolute height of the trade conflict, India recorded positive export growth in, get this, 24 different countries. We're talking places like the UAE, Mexico, Russia, Kenya, you name it. That is what a real economic safety net looks like in practice.
And the diplomatic push, that delivered tangible results too. I mean, the UK trade deal wasn't just a talking point. It got signed in July. The talks with the EU were hitting major milestones, and that existing deal with Australia already paying dividends. See, these weren't just plans on a to-do list. They were actual wins on the board.
And this is where the numbers really put it all together. So you've got the minus 11.9% hit from the US market, right? But then you have the plus 10.9% gain from the rest of the world. And when you balance those two out, what do you get? India still managed a net overall export growth of 6.74% in September. They successfully cushioned the blow and just kept moving forward.
So really, the best way to think about it is this. India didn't escape the storm. They just learned how to dance in the rain. They adapted. They found new paths to growth, even as the old, familiar ones were getting flooded.
So what's the big takeaway here? What can we learn from this whole trade shock and the really clever strategic response? Well, it pretty much offers a whole new playbook for how to navigate this crazy, uncertain global economy.
I think there are three really crucial lessons here. First, anticipation always beats reaction. The groundwork was laid way before the crisis ever hit. Second, diversification is your best defense. Simple as that. Having a lot of strong trade partners is the ultimate insurance policy against a shock from just one of them. And finally, and this is important, preparation is not the same thing as protection. The plan wasn't some perfect shield. It was a framework for long-term adaptation.
You know, this kind of long-term strategic thinking, it's pretty rare, but it's definitely not new. If you really want to dive deeper into these historical patterns, how nations have prepared for major power shifts throughout history, I cannot recommend Ray Dalio's Principles for Dealing with the Changing World Order enough. It breaks down exactly these kinds of cycles, and you can grab it on Audible right now. It provides just incredible context for the economic shifts we are all living through today.
So when those 50% tariffs finally hit, India didn't crumble. It recalibrated. And that's because in today's global economy, the best defense isn't protectionism, it's preparation. We are Voice on Pages, where economics meets reality.
Hey, if you enjoyed this real-world strategy breakdown and want more just like it, make sure you subscribe. And I really am curious to hear your thoughts. Which country's trade strategy do you think is the most fascinating one to watch right now? Drop a comment below and let me know.